You have until 5 o'clock.
Yes.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday, March 5th, 2025 informal meeting of the Savannah-Chatham County Board of Public Education. This is an informal meeting. This is an information meeting only. We do not take any votes during this meeting. And we are going to open with our informational board member minute. Dr. Hoskins-Brown.
Thank you. So if I remember correctly, you asked me to comment on the audit meeting.
Yes.
And so one of the things that was really fascinating about the audit committee meeting was the coverage of the attendance matter and our ability to be able to really adequately record those data and report on it in a way that truly reflects our attendance. And we talked about it in a couple of ways. One, the attendance as it was measured by the students showing up at school that day, and also the attendance recorded by block in block sessions. So I'm sorry, you got me really, I was mid-sip of diet soda.
It's okay.
So a couple of things is that we already know that student attendance has decreased over the past several years, and it's below the values that we saw prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. We also saw that overall, our ability to assess attendance needs some improvement. We took samples, they're called judgmental samples, but it means that it wasn't collected in an unbiased way. And of the samples that were taken, the majority were missing information that we were supposed to be able to recover at a regular period. Not surprisingly, at some school levels, some teachers missed recording attendance in some of the blocks. For example, in middle and high school, 64.9% of the teachers missed recording attendance in 5 or fewer blocks, and 37 recorded attendance for all blocks during the 2-week period where this was being observed. And so this resulted in recommendations to our procedures to help improve this work, primarily by creating a video that would help provide better instruction on how to do this, developing written procedures for monitoring teachers recording attendance, and identifying strategies that would help increase recording attendance. We also talked some about the Student Attendance Committee and how that committee operated, and there were recommendations on how to better support those teams providing that information. Overall, I think that, and that was an area that also needed improvement. So the last thing that I'll mention is the work assessing the booster clubs. And we're all familiar with booster clubs and how they support the mission at different schools. They provide financial support, they provide moral support. And one of the challenges that the audit office found was that all of the principals were not equally aware of how to implement the policy on supervising booster clubs. Some were very, very hands-on. Some were kind of, I don't really know exactly how they run. And I think that my personal opinion is my experience with booster clubs is they desire and demand a level of autonomy that may feed that disconnect, but I think that by working more collaboratively, that principals will be able to find ways to work with them, but not take away the freedoms that allow them to express their support for the school. So that was an area, the way in which booster clubs are covered under the board policy LEC was another area that needed improvement. So it was not a banner day for our self-assessment in the audit committee, but it gave us a lot of information on what we could be doing better to supervise booster clubs and to make sure our attendance data is accurate.
Thank you very much. Any comments? Dr. Howard Hall.
Yes, the one thing about booster clubs, many schools have multiple booster clubs, basketball boosters, football boosters, band boosters, so it probably becomes, a little busy for principals to be hands-on with all those different boosters going on at the same time. So that's good that they're looking into that to try to figure out how to make it smoother and easier for everybody to work together when it comes to fundraisers.
That's a really good point. You may have one student activity account, but you could have a booster for every single extracurricular activity, and so that could be really, really hard to manage. That's a really good observation.
Anyone else? Yes, Ms. Hall.
First of all, to all the women in the room, this is Women's History Month. Congratulations on all of your fine achievements and all of your aspirations. To our staff also. I also want to talk for a minute about something I came across on Morning Joe the other day. They were talking about the significant learning gap between boys and girls that's beginning to come to attention across the nation. Rather severe, that we have many more females going to college, doing well in college, and in the K-12 arena also. So one of the solutions that the presenter came up with was that at a school in Maryland, they've started having no classroom activities during first period. So the kids are either outside doing recreational things, or they're in their little club meetings, or they're talking with their mentors, but the day starts off in a very non-academic way. And what it has shown is that the boys seem to be relating to each other and to their teachers in a much better way than they were doing previously. The attendance is up, and the eagerness to get up and come to school. Parents were saying their boys are doing much more. So I think this is something we need to look at, because it never dawned on me that, I want us women to shine, but I don't want us to leave our male counterparts behind. So if anybody hears any more about this, I'd love to know a little more about what we might do in terms of CTAE, welding, and, what could we do to get us out of the classroom, outside, to start our days rather than, immediately going into lecture mode or whatever. Thank you.
Mr. Smith, did you have something? Okay. Anyone else?
I was going to say that the boys are not going to get left behind. The boys won't get left behind.
So, thank you, Dr. Hoskins-Brown, and thank you, Ms. Hall. One comment I will make is that we are one of the few school systems that has an internal audit committee. I congratulate us for having that. And it is independent, and the committee is made up of citizens, along with board members. And our audit department is an internal audit department, and they have autonomy. And that's, I just want the public to understand, we look into ourselves. So, thank you. Okay, yes.
Sorry, I forgot to mention one thing. And this important, really impressive work done by our financial team. What used to be called the CAFR, I still call it the CAFR. I know it's not the CAFR. It's the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. We win awards for this document every single year. It represents a digest of how we're doing and what we're doing financially, prepared independently. And just like our budget, I know many of people wait all year to read our annual budget because it's so scintillating. But just like the annual budget, this has information that helps you understand how the district works in ways that you don't get by sometimes watching the meetings. And so this was produced and made available and is available to the public. And hats off to our team for getting it done and for our independent audit being done.
Hey. Moving on, our next thing on our agenda is our summer programming update. Mr. Butler.
Okay. Well, great afternoon. We are excited to share about our summer learning and enrichment opportunities for 2025. Our district remains committed to maximizing impact by ensuring that our students not only recover learning, but they also have opportunities to explore, engage, and excel in ways. And I think I am still waiting for our presentation to project. I'm going to try that again. Are you all able to?
But I got this paper copy, so we're good.
Okay, okay. I certainly want the technology to work as well, so we'll.
Chalkboard.
Awesome. And we're ready to rock and roll. Okay. And just for clarification, there are a few adjustments in the hard copy that you have. I'll try to make note of that when we come to that particular slide. Not significant changes, but just a few want to bring your attention to. So our summer learning programs certainly align to our district strategic map and always want to make sure that we're grounded in that conversation. But as we continue our planning efforts, we're excited to highlight that this summer's opportunities for our scholars will certainly support student success and promote real-world experiences, and we want to capture some of that in our sharing with you relative to our enrichment camps. So, for students needing academic remediation, we will be providing our traditional promotion and grade recovery opportunities for students in grades 3 through 12, and want to also highlight and make sure that we provide clarification that our students in high school, grades 10 through 12, will have an opportunity to earn both initial credit as well as recover a credit. So wanted to make sure that we were providing clarification around that, but all students in grades 9 through 12 will have an opportunity to participate in one or more of those options. We'll continue to leverage a blended learning model to provide targeted support to students, both individual and small group support. And this year, we're excited to really focus and provide support through grant funds, support for our EL students in grades K through 3. Our summer school schedule will operate like it has previously on a 4-day week, Monday through Thursday, with students attending half day each session. Our high school students will have an opportunity to earn up to 2 credits for the credit acquisition, and so they'll have an opportunity to complete that during that half-day session. But we'll also leverage the time to provide enrichment experiences for our students during the summer learning model. And so we wanted to make sure that we provided that clarification as well. This will result in really 14 days of instruction. So we wanted to also make sure that you were aware of the specific number of days that were available, which has traditionally been here over the last couple years of the summer school model. Our summer school sites for 2025. Our focus here has really been to maximize instructional time, but also to allow for summer facility projects to proceed with minimal interference and interruption. So you'll notice that we've designated those specific sites. They'll host those schools, but they'll be operating independently in terms of coordinating based on those school needs. You'll also notice that there's an asterisk identifying those schools that will be providing additional supports through 21st Century programs, and we'll highlight a little bit of that here later in the presentation. And wanted to go back very quickly because I think this was the difference on the presentation of the hard copy that you have. We just wanted to make sure that the language was clear, again, around the credit acquisition and the promotion and grade recovery for our students.
Yes, Ms. Hall.
Can we get a copy of the sites also, because that's not in our
Yes,
folder?
well, absolutely, share that with you. So beyond our academic intervention, through our generally our traditional summer learning program opportunities, we'll also be providing and excited to bring back many of our CTAE summer enrichment experiences for students. There will be both fee-based and non-fee-based camps provided. Our traditional fee-based camps have been our junior university, the programs offered at both Oatland Island and Massey Heritage. And by the way, the junior university includes pre-AP, includes our world language and cultural immersion camps for our students in both middle and high school. So we're excited about that. We're also excited to share with you that we'll be bringing back the SWAP, which is our student workforce apprentice program, and expanding those opportunities for our students across the district. This is an opportunity for our high school students to work in our district divisions and at our schools, providing additional support and getting some of those real world experiences. I do want to also make note of the LEAP, which is new in that we'll be offering that not only to parents, but this summer, we're really going to be providing an opportunity for our high school students to participate. Our 12th grade students who will be transitioning to the workforce. So we'll be doing some upskilling and positioning them for success, providing them an opportunity if they did not have during their high school time the opportunity to earn certifications that will allow them to transition into the workforce. So we're really excited about that for this summer. It will just be for our students. LEAP is generally offered to our parents, but we wanted to make sure that this was an opportunity for those students. As I shared with you, we are really excited to bring back our CTA enrichment camps, which we did not have an opportunity to provide last year. These camps will take place on the campus of Woodville-Tompkins High School. And this is for our rising 6th through 9th graders. This is an opportunity for them to engage in career exploration, really begin developing those industry-aligned skills through engaging in project-based learning. So these are some of the camps that we're excited to offer to our students for the upcoming year. We did not denote in your presentation or here the cost, but we're happy to share what that is as we continue to plan. We are looking to and exploring opportunities to subsidize, provide scholarships for those students who seek to participate and may not have the funds to participate in our CTAE enrichment camps.
Okay, before you go on, Ms. Campbell.
How are we making students aware of this, especially since it wasn't offered last summer?
Yep. So we are prepared to share information with our students and our families beginning in April.
Okay.
And so they'll have an opportunity to sign up at that time. That will be district communication, will also be school-based communication that will be provided.
Awesome. And who are we using to teach? Is it just teachers from Woodville-Tompkins, or are we contracting out with these other community members that want to get involved and be a part of it?
Yeah, so our primary facilitators are our district's CTAE teachers. However, they will leverage many of the partners that they work with throughout the year to support some of the programming.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anyone else? So we're going to get the word out in April. The only comment I'm going to make on that is, having worked with parents on summer camp, parents are making decisions for summer camp now. And So we need, if we're going to try to get, we need to get this word out
Certainly.
yesterday.
Certainly.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. All right. Yes, Ms. Hall.
I just want to say, are you through, Mr. Butler, or you're not through?
I just have general information, summer
going.
enrichment dates. I certainly don't have to provide a great deal of detail here, but did just want to reemphasize that informational summer enrichment opportunities, and thank you for that question, will be shared with families in early April through our district and school notifications. And then just finally, we are exploring the opportunity to provide transportation for students in summer school and in some of our camp and enrichment programs. We've traditionally provided transportation for students participating in the junior university on the campus of Georgia Southern. So that is something we'll continue to explore. Last year, we did not provide the CTAE enrichment camps. And so we are exploring that, but our primary transportation needs will be for our students in the traditional summer learning on our across our school campuses. We'll continue to provide breakfast and lunch in partnership with Second Harvest at all of our schools and for all grade levels. And as I shared with you earlier, as part of the summer learning and even our summer camp experiences, we will continue to prioritize those wellness activities as they are integrated in the daily schedule for our students. So with that information, I know that there may be some additional questions. I will open up to questions at this time.
Dr. Howard Hall, and then Dr. Hoskins-Brown.
Thank you for your presentation. I know that during the summer months, we have a higher percentage of students with IEPs. So how are we supporting the teachers as well as the students? For example, I do know that in some instances, you may have a teacher with 18 students in her class with all 18 having an IEP, and that's a lot on one teacher. So what kind of support are we offering those teachers as well as students?
Yeah. So if I may just share with you, first, two of our programs, so Camp Arise provides opportunities for our adaptive students. We will continue to provide as we are required to provide FAPE for students' extended school year as per their IEP or based on needs. But those students that are participating in summer learning, we do staff summer school with our inclusion teachers to provide that additional support. And so that support will be available for all of our students participating in summer school.
Okay.
Dr. Hoskins-Brown, and then Ms. Hall.
Thank you. This is a great presentation. I'm really happy to see the variety of programs that we're offering. I know we've offered some of these before, but really great job on getting the variety of activities out. And I agree with Mr. Moss. You know, we put out information about our marine science camp in March. By April, we're notifying folks who have gotten accepted. So I just have one question. At one time, we had a really comprehensive guide, I think it was PDF and print, that parents could flip through the whole thing and know all of what's being offered. Are we doing that this time?
Yes.
Okay. And forgive me for not knowing this, other people may know it, but I know Savannah used to have a guide. It used to be in a newspaper.
Yeah.
And everybody tried to get their content into that guide. Do we know if that still happens?
That was Savannah Morning News used to do that. They don't do that anymore. Does Savannah Magazine do it anymore? They don't do it anymore. Yeah, those were the two we used to use.
So
for children's
our
book.
guide is going to be gold. Our guide is going to be awesome then. Okay.
There are some newsletters that do go out that are
Like
more
Southern Mamas
community-based,
and
like
things like
Southern Mamas. That, yeah.
good.
So that's where a lot of the parents will go to find stuff as well.
Yeah, and we'll certainly be, our district communications team will work to make sure that we push that information out as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Hall, and then Mr. Smith.
Mr. Butler, the first question I'm going to get is the cost for the camps. So when did you say we'd be able to have that information?
Very soon. The previous, well, I'll just share with you, previous years, the cost for our CTAE enrichment camps has been around $250, $150. 150.
And do we have any scholarships?
So those are the things that we're working on
Okay.
to provide and subsidize costs for those students that desire to participate and may not. But yes, we want to make sure that those students that desire to participate, that they're able to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. And one question I was going to ask was about the pricing. And I think that the answer to my question that I will ask will be found because of the pricing. Is there any are there opportunities for transportation to these camps?
So
To
yes,
these
for
summer
our junior
programs?
university, we have traditionally not provided transportation for our CTA enrichment camps. It is something that we're exploring, but the routing for those students is generally a little bit more challenging. But we'll explore the model that we utilize for junior university for our CTA enrichment camps. So that's something that we're exploring.
So there's a possibility that transportation could be provided, lunch can be provided, as well as an enriching program for 150. I think that's an amazing opportunity. That's not a commercial, but I'm just saying.
Thank you for that.
Dr. Brinkman, then Dr. Howard Hall.
You might not be able to answer this. Don't think you need to. Oatland Island always fills. I just hopped on to see if there's like a seat left in like 1 or 2 grade levels. I know that, and that opened Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It did.
So is that capacity capped because of space, instructors? Is there?
Most likely both.
Yeah. So not a place to grow. I'm just asking. I don't, sometimes it's easy just to be like, hey, that's what we did last year.
Certainly.
And it worked fine. And I don't want to tell everybody they got to do their whole summer on camps, but it always makes, I'm guessing it makes money. The kids love it and it sells out in minutes. Other question on initial credit. How many students do we actually have sign up to try to get ahead that do just, I want to take this class early? I know I don't know if we push it a bunch out to the masses.
So I don't have the specific number,
Yeah.
but I will share with you, it's generally a very small percentage. Those students may normally seek to earn that initial credit in advance during the year through our Twilight program. So generally a very small percentage during summer school.
Okay. Not for this year, maybe next year. The idea of pitching initial credit to students with the idea that during the school year there's something that's above and beyond. So they take their English class in the summer so that during fall, spring, they actually have something that normally isn't accessible or a little bit, I've seen it in other districts where students actually go all through the summer and take their core classes so they can take that extra. And it might be that they just want to take an extra elective. I don't know if it's ever really been advertised that way. Like, most of our schools, they finish 2 pathways. Well, if they did initial credit for a couple summers, they might actually be able to finish a 3rd. At least one person in the audience is shaking my head saying, yeah, it might be able to happen. For some of the students that, they want another, or just, I kind of want to check that out. So I don't know what that looks like. And if it becomes cost prohibitive, then yeah, I can understand. But I've definitely seen other school districts where students, like, my kid's taking summer school. I'm like, why? So they can take fun classes during the school year. I was like, okay. So just thoughts.
Dr. Howard Hall.
Yes, are the enrichment camps full day or half day?
So they will operate on the same schedule as summer school. So they are,
So the time
Half
is
day, yeah.
half day, okay.
Some of them are 9 to 3 is what's in the.
and so thank you for that question.
9 to 3 is
Yeah.
in the.
So,
they're a little longer then,
yeah.
because the other ones are out at like 1:30, right?
And let me clarify for our enrichment camp. So that's probably our staff hours. And so for our students, we are generally probably going to run on a similar schedule as the 21st Century, and I'll make that update.
Anyone else? Thank you very much, sir. Great. All right. Next, we'll have a presentation on teacher vacancies and employee retention. Mr. Ray.
Good evening, good afternoon. I'm also here with Dr. Michael Patton, who is our Executive Director of Talent Services. And so going to do this because most of this area covers as it relates to there. I wanted to make sure I go through that. Get this started. So we're excited to be able to present this today on the strategic action plan, strategic priority 3 goal, talent management for optimal human performance. I always have to remind people as we go through this that it's not just us. We may be the gatekeepers of a lot of what happens with employees, but we're not the start and the ending point of what happens. What I mean by that is when we hiring is done by hiring managers, not by HR. HR may process applications, HR may approve people, but the hiring is actually done by the managers. That also is true for retention. On the back end, we're not the ones that are directly involved in what may or may not happen at a school level or building level or office level. So we all take a part in that. It's one thing we did with the strategic plan. Dr. Watts was clear on making sure everybody understood that everybody plays a part in it. It's not just human resources. We all have a stake at making sure that we are able to get these gains that we need to have. So looking at the strategic priority 3, performance objective A, looking at the slide, we wanted to have our key performance indicator was to decrease the number of teacher vacancies. So I'm going to discuss that as we go to this next slide. As you can see here, we have a teacher vacancy reduction. We're going to reset a baseline at the end of this year, but for this purpose of being able to present today, wanted to use a baseline of what you see in August of 2024 through January of 2025. August being when we started the school year, and then, of course, January being the day where we are. One thing I would highlight is that these are teacher of record, for the most part, teacher of record, but these are classroom teachers that you're looking at, not necessarily other positions that you see. Also, when you're looking at the data of 180, we're talking about January once we started when students were in. We have provided some data prior to that in July, so I just wanted to make sure that was clear related to that. You can see that we've done well with our vacancies in bringing our percentages down. Currently where we are, we're not where we need to be, and certainly next year this time we're going to do a little snapshot as well and try to be better as we get to that point within the mid-year. Do you want to add anything?
I would just add on this slide that yes, and at the beginning of the school year we do have lots of vacancies, but that number gets very fluid as positions are open and positions are closed. So you asked today what a number of total classroom teacher positions are, and then a couple of days later, or as situations change, that number could change. So we're just trying to report exactly what we see on a snapshot in the moment.
Looking at our reducing our vacancies, progress and action. As you can see, where we were as far as we were in August compared to now, and we actually had a KPI that was set that we're close at just projecting to the future a target area for 2026. So we are actually close to where that target is even before we started to truly start tracking it, but you can kind of see where we are related to that from the start of the year. Strategic priority 3, still employed. Looking at our key strategies for 2024-2025, we focus on recruitment and retention incentives for high priority schools. We developed and implemented a comprehensive compensation plan. You will recall at the board retreat in August that we did the classified portion of the compensation plan, and we're actually almost finished with the certified portion as we're speaking today, that focus on recruitment, retention, and recognizing highly effective workforce. We developed and implemented a comprehensive retention plan. We will be developing a comprehensive retention plan to provide a supportive and value-added employee experience. We will implement a calibrated evaluation system that balances support and accountability to maximize employee performance. Again, those are progress. Recruitment wins. I'll let Dr. Penton talk about the wins.
So some of our wins, we had 112 teachers hired that were hired based on a employee referral. So someone who works currently with us referred a teacher. We had 112 of those. We also have been focused on leveraging our current staff, and we have several staff members who are classified and they desire to become classroom teachers. And so many times we do things like individual alternative pathway to teaching sessions for them, or we do one-on-one kind of coaching things with them. So this year we had 55 classified staff become teachers, and we offer critical field incentives. We had 144 critical field teachers hired, and 56 of those critical field incentives went to our high priority schools. So 56 of the 144.
And you'll recall as we hire any of our employees that are classified, that we note the ones that have bachelor's degrees. So anyone that has a bachelor's degree that's classified, we're giving them information as they're hired on how to become a teacher, and kind of still tracking them to kind of give them that interest. So that's how we get the numbers. It does cause a problem because we have to backfill those, but it's easier to backfill the paraprofessional positions than it is to get a teacher. So that's one of our pipelines that we have currently. Looking at our key performance indicator, increase the retention of effective employees. You can see our resignations. This is, again, a snapshot looking from July of 2023 to January of 2024, and in the same time period, July of 2024 to January 2025. You can see that increase. We are doing slightly better. Certainly, we'll continue to work on that. We're still looking at some of the reasonings. A lot of the top reasonings, maybe, there are different reasons for what we have with those. Some of them are retirement, family circumstances are another one, and then some of them are also just relocation of where they're going. Retention strategies in action. You can see we expanded the employee referral program. Now this number is all employees. What you saw before was teachers. This is all employees, 189 hires, classified as certified pipeline. We mentioned the 55. Before, expanded academic supplements this year, and I can say academic supplements and athletic supplements are part of the compensation plan. So we're looking at how competitive we are in those areas. So as that compensation study is done and completed, particularly on the certified side, you'll see if we need to make adjustments as it relates to the academic supplements and our athletic supplements as well. We implemented and calibrated the competency-based executive leader evaluation system for our upper-level management team. And we also have, as we mentioned before, the Evergreen compensation study, and completed the first classified and still in the process on the certified.
Questions?
Sorry, 1 second, Mr. Moss. Dr. Patton want to add something.
Okay, there's more.
I just wanted to add in that one of the things that I certainly believe that, retention is the new recruitment strategy. So it's how we're taking care of our staff that we have so that we don't have to spend so much effort in the recruitment efforts. It's more about the retention effort. And this year we have really seen a big explosion of not just recruiting, but retaining and recognizing our employees. And that has, I believe, is shifting the culture in Savannah-Chatham County Public School System. And this year we've had at the an Excellence in Leadership Award that's presented to district level leaders as well as principals during our leadership meetings. We've also we're having the inaugural Principal of the Year recognition, and we still have our Teacher of the Year and instructional support staff. And so we're working at ways that we can continuously recognize our employees, and that's something that we're trying to shift, that we're going to focus more on how we retain people so we don't have to spend so much energy recruiting.
And we also had early contracts issued in February, so that process has been complete. So we have those employees locked in as far as for next year at this point by the time we're having this meeting. And we obviously have ongoing wellness efforts as well as we try to make sure our employees are well and try to meet those needs that they may have through EAP or other services.
Okay, you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, Ms. Hall, Mr. Kachmar, Smith, Howard Hall.
Dr. Panton, what did you say
Mr.
the
Grabowski.
incentive was if I'm a teacher and I refer another person to be a teacher and they're hired? What is the incentive I receive?
A $300
Oh, okay. So
with no limit on how
Okay.
many you want to refer.
once that person is actually hired.
And last year we had 5. We had one employee get 5 referrals.
Really?
So certainly we encourage, yes, not just one referral. They can have 20 referrals. As long as they're hired and meet the criteria, then they'd be able to get that $300 for each individual referral.
Immediately after we get the check?
Mr. Kachmar.
Dr. Brinkman, you want to be a bus driver?
I was thinking 300 was a little low.
Let's recruit, we can recruit each other.
Yeah. BioLife gives you $100 to get somebody to come donate plasma. So I'm just saying, the market, we might need a market analysis on that.
There you go. I appreciate the constant review of our structures and processes. I note you said we're reviewing X, Y, and Z to make sure we're competitive. What does competitive mean?
Good point. Competitive at this point, we're referring to the compensation studies that are done by Evergreen, which are comparing us to our 21 other school districts. And so many of those are within our region, within Georgia, Atlanta, Charleston, Jacksonville, I think it's the other ones. So that's what I mean by competitive today. In prior years, I'm referring to what we have determined by looking at the Metro RESA data, which is all 55 school districts that participate, and we kind of try to look at that to try to see, well, we have a company that this year is doing it to be able to get that analysis, and they're comparing us to other states. So it's a little bit higher level than we would normally have in other years when I'm presenting that statement.
Okay, so that's the data we're looking at.
Yes.
So we get the higher level data.
Yes.
Do we say, okay, check the box, we're competitive if we're at the 50.1 level?
Yeah,
Or-
so what
or
they
do
look
we-
at, what we're looking at is where we are at the midpoint. So the midpoint is compared with other districts and what their midpoints are per position. So each position is different and each position is graded. We have 200 positions total, I believe, that have looked at as far as classified and certified. And many of those positions can be, you know, if we have clerks, but we have secretaries, they're kind of similar, so we may not have done both. But that's what it's looking at is the midpoint. It's also making comparison with days. So some districts may have an employee working different days doing the same job as others. What they look at is the hourly rate. It's based on the hourly rate. What is the hourly rate that's paid for these positions? And that's kind of what the comparison that they're doing.
I understand that, and you probably know where I'm going with this. For years, I've been saying we should set a policy goal of being top 15% in the region or 10% or whatever, but competitive is not what some data from the Southeast tells us. Competitive is, do we have 400 chronic vacancies somewhere? We're not competitive. If we have an abundance of applicants and we're picking and choosing from the best and the brightest for some position, then we are competitive. So it's really our reality of what we're experiencing rather than what the data from a job study tells us. And we know we have chronic positions we can never fill or keep filled. We hire, They stay for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, they get some experience, and then they leave 12, 18 months later for more pay or less hours or more professional development. So that's really, to me, what competitive is. The data study is a good starting point, but then we have to compare it to what our actual experience is and where we have chronic shortages in particular.
I agree. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm just going to keep on this side and then move to this side. Dr. Hoskins-Brown?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the report, and there were two items I had, well, a comment and a question on the classified to certified pipeline. That's really, really important. I love that number and that it's getting higher. This is really, it really means we're creating generational change in those families when you see that movement. So I think that's terrific, and anything that can enhance that, I'd be in favor of. I want to get some more information about the competency-based executive leader evaluation system. Can you just tell me more about this, or what are its key features or key foundational components?
Sure. The competency-based executive evaluation system, we started this year. Dr. Watts, when she came in, she was asking about these questions. I know that Stacey Taylor has been instrumental in helping with develop that system. And all of our executive directors and above, were evaluated on that particular system. That particular system is looking at the it's basically looking at the goals compared to the strategic plan. So we have 3 goals that we are setting for ourselves. 2 of the goals we have to determine that are related to the strategic plan. We're working through trying to measure where we think we're going to be, where we think we are. The midpoint you get measured at you're measuring at that point, and then at the end, did you actually meet the goal? There's one goal that we have the option to do our own, what we think, as far as what we think we're going to be able to obtain from a goal standpoint, start to finish, and that is monitored as well, and we're able to report back at the midterm. How have we done? How have we done our own personal goal as well? So ultimately, all of this relates to the strategic plan. We have a focus on our collective efforts at addressing the strategies and addressing the performance indicators that we have, and that's kind of our focus on that. Dr. Watts, you want to certainly.
You did a great job.
Okay.
Thank you. So Ramon summed it up well. I'll just add that 70% of the evaluation is competency-based. So as an executive team, as a part of extended cabinet, we went through a process with the team to pick which competencies we feel best aligned to effective leadership. So you have strategic thinking, analytical thinking, impact and influence, monitoring and directiveness, and we have developed rubrics. So your 70% of your evaluation is based on those competencies, and then the 30% of your evaluation is based on the goals that you set for yourself that are aligned to the strategic plan goals.
So that's really helpful, because I was about to ask, it sounded like it was a cohort evaluation, but it's actually, as a cohort, y'all developed an evaluation that's applied to individuals.
Yes.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Awesome.
Ms. Grabowski?
Thank you, and thanks for the update. And I love hearing the focus on retention, because absolutely agree that so much money is spent onboarding someone and training someone, and that they leave, you got to go back again. So congratulations on that. I will go back. So to Mr. Ray's opening comment about site-based hiring and retention, that you process the applications. So if someone comes to the district, moves here, they don't know anything about Savannah-Chatham County, do we have what does the process look like if they're like, I want to be a 3rd grade teacher? Can they put their application into a hopper that's then distributed to all elementary schools, or what does that process look like?
So certainly, we, when you see our job board and we have positions that say various locations, that means every principal has access to that application.
Okay.
Some principals, once they're very clear, because we start recruiting well before the principal knows that they are going to have some vacancies. So we try to keep a pool open so that we're always accepting those applications. But once they do know, they will start to put in individual site-based positions, which is how you end up seeing a school name saying, oh, we're looking for a fourth grade teacher.
So they could get there either through that kind of open call or through a specific site-based.
And then the various locations also helps, like our principals, if they're interviewing 4 or 5 people today, but they only have one vacancy, they're
Right.
going to call their colleague and say, hey, I just interviewed this great person in this, or they can collaborate because all of them have access to that application, as opposed to if the person just applied to one school, that principal is the only one who can see it.
Right.
And then when no one calls because they filled it, we're like, well, they filled their position, but if you go to the various locations, we will definitely.
Well,
have
because
access.
I have heard, and maybe this has been corrected, but I have heard from people who have tried to apply frustration that they feel like they aren't hearing back, or so just want to make sure that we're not letting great people get through the cracks just because they didn't, fill in the right blank or something like that.
No, we pre-screen all of our applications in HR, and so once they have that qualified status, we're constantly sending, hey, these are all, the minute we hear that someone is looking for a kindergarten teacher, we may send them everyone that we know that has a qualified application, just because that'll, not that the principals don't have access, but whatever we can do to support them and ease in that. Here's the phone number, here's the name
right.
and the email address. So we have a pretty responsive team, so, and they're constantly in communication with applicants. So if someone is saying they're not hearing anything, they could just shoot us an email, because we're in constant communication with applicants.
Okay, great. At our last, I guess we were discussing at the retreat, and you mentioned it again, Mr. Ray, one of the things we're looking at is the compensation for all of the extra things. And since that time, I have learned, and you can correct me if this is wrong, that sometime that the compensation, the budget for that compensation, depending on the position and what they're doing, sometimes it's at the district level and sometimes it's at the school-based level. So we don't have to get into those details right now, but I'd be really interested in learning, particularly as part of our budget process, how those allocations happen and which ones are position-based from the district job description level and which ones are at the school level. And happy to have a sidebar afterwards. I see it confused.
I think I know what she's referring to. I think.
Does something have to do, if you're dealing with
I-
students versus if you're not directly?
Well, I think we can, and Mr. Butler will be able to articulate this. I think when it relates to the academic supplements, they're pretty prescribed. We know exactly what it is for everything, but then there's some variations. For example, you find out in athletics. Athletics may have a pot, and they may be able to have floating coaches. So those coaches may get different amount. Or you may have 2 coaches that they split. There's some things, so they have 2 coordinators, and they're splitting the 2 coordinators. So there's one amount for a coordinator, but then they split it between 2 people. Some of those things happen that are based on what a decision is made by the school. Even though we may be having an offensive coordinator, they may be splitting it between 2 different people. So that's just something that we can show you, and you can kind of see kind of what happens. But most of those, almost all of those are specifically prescribed as a certain amount. Dr. Butler, you want to? Mr. Butler?
No, I think you articulated it well. It's about funding the position and not the person, because those site-based administrators, much like with athletics, they may do that as well with the academic supplement positions as well.
Okay. And then just real quickly, on one of the things we've talked about before, that you can do an exit interview, you may or may not get the information. Are we asking, so if you look at a SWOT analysis, that looks at both internal and external, right? We can't do a whole lot about the external of someone's family moves. We can do a whole lot about the internal. So, I mean, I would love for us to have a real simple, is your reason for leaving more directly related to internal or external? And then we know what we can control.
We actually talked on cabinet about revamping. We don't get a lot of exit survey
Yeah.
data back. So we need to revamp that process and make it more of a focus, because the data that we have is not strong. so that we can really determine what we can influence and control and what may be beyond. So
And we
to
did have-
validate what you're saying, yes.
And we really had a meeting at 2:00 today about that.
Yes, so
Okay, well-
we are having those conversations right now.
Yeah, and I just think that's
Exit and retention, yes.
and we've talked about, how as roles evolve and more stuff gets piled on, that sometimes that's like death by a thousand cuts.
Right.
And so the way in which we are looking at that is really important. And then the last thing I'll mention real quick, or ask real quickly, is in the retention, are we looking at the strategies that were recommended in the teacher burnout report as part of our retention tools?
Yes, absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
So, Ms. Hall and Dr. Hoskins-Brown both have something
All right,
else.
I know we need to get to the other
And
side.
we're going to get to you guys, I
To
promise.
the other side. But in addressing these vacancies, other than substitute teachers, are there any creative strategies that principals have come up with in terms of addressing, the students sitting in front of that class, the students waiting for someone in front of that class? Is it just substitute teachers, or are there other things that principals are doing?
Well, some of the things that they're doing is they build their master schedule around who they have. So if there's not a teacher and it's not going to overcrowd the class, many times they just collapse that class, or they will put the teachers on an extended day so that a teacher may be going in to teach on their planning period to teach that class, and then they're using that salary so that all of their teachers can then have that common planning time with a supplement at the end of the day. So they.
In a way, that's a solution. I think planning time is real important, especially if you're in a team situation. So I am not really in favor of them having to do that, but I'm thinking technology-wise,
Correct.
especially like in high school. If we have a vacancy, say, of a biology teacher, and there's an outstanding biology teacher at Beach, but we have a vacancy at Groves, cannot that biology teacher do a virtual with that class at Groves? Do you see what I'm saying? Rather than just having a substitute coming there who knows nothing about biology, who's an adult in the room, but the kids aren't really advancing. So I guess I'm asking for the technology piece.
And there's an option.
There are strategies where you can use technology to expand the reach of teachers that may not actually be sitting in the building. Some are in the building, and you're using technology to be in their classroom, but you would still need some facilitation in the classroom.
Like a para might have
Right, to be in the supervisor, yes. But there are technologies to do that, and that is something that I'm ready to go on.
Oh, good.
And would love to have more planning and conversations around that.
Dr. Hoskins-Brown?
Thank you. I'll be brief. I want to follow up on the comments about the exit interviews. We've had different conversations about the kind of information that we get from there or the information that we don't get, because people have different motivations and interests when they're exiting. Sometimes they're just like so done, they don't have any feedback, or they're like lighting a match as they're walking out the door. So we just don't get what we could get because of the time of that interview. And this is not a terrific time to be modeling federal processes, but in the federal evaluation, well, I'm just saying it as someone who goes through this process. In the federal performance evaluation process, there's two meetings. The first meeting is the meeting where I just say, here's all of what's going on, here's what I think. It's the time when the employee just talks. There's no feedback from the supervisor. And then the next meeting is, here's your feedback, here's your evaluation, and here's the process if you do not agree with how you have been evaluated. And so there's that first meeting, there is there's an amount of liberty and freedom to be able to say, this is what I'm thinking, this is how the climate may or may not be affecting my performance, and those sorts of things. So there's still some tension related to having a conversation that is related to your evaluation, but it just seems like we could possibly have the ability to structure the right time for the right question to get better information before people are on their way out the door, and they don't care if we take their feedback at all.
I think the way we, well, I don't think, I know, the current way we collect that data is not even an interview, it's a survey, right? So some of those conversations are likely being had to the point that you just made, but we don't have a way to capture that. So when the employee comes in and says, these are all the reasons why I want to leave, they're having that conversation potentially with their direct supervisor, but the direct supervisor isn't required to provide that or capture that in any way. So that's another qualitative piece that would be helpful, but we don't have a structure for it.
And so that may be it, is to find a question or a structure that supervisors can summarize what are these features, and I'm looking at our attorney who piped up a little bit, so I want to make sure I'm not suggesting something that is untoward, but how can we get the kind of information from supervisors that says what constructive comments or destructive comments about climate or departure, whatever, have you received during this quarter, or or during this biennium, or whatever, just something that even if they didn't want to attach it to individuals, they could attach it to a unit or a period of time that would be able to use that information.
Okay.
Also, can I add something?
Yes.
Along those lines, something we've been thinking about. Every day we get requests for employees to return. What I mean by requests is they're former employees that come back and applied for some role. And so one of the things that we're thinking about in the future is to ask them, why did you come back? So they may not have told us why they left, but what is it that brought you back? So you hear a lot of that. You'll see a lot of those on those board agendas where people, they leave, but then they come back. So we're going to try to start looking at communicate, because they'll be more open to communicating about wanting to come back. We're going to start tracking that too and get that information.
Mr. Smith?
Awesome. Thank you for your presentation thus far. I have a plethora of questions. I'm going to work to be as I'm going to work to be as expeditious as possible. One question I want to start off on page 8. We see retirement. My question is this: do we have a projection of numbers of people that are eligible for retirement ahead of time? And do we take the opportunity to go to them to ask if they plan to retire since they're eligible, so that we can be in a place of being prepared for their departure if they so desire?
We may have a projection data, we may have that, I don't know, but one of the things that we started last year was an intent form process, which is actually going out as we speak, where people can tell us their intent. It's not binding.
Right.
But it will at least give us an indication of what they're thinking, so that we can maybe follow up with a conversation and collect more data on why you're leaving, why you're retiring, or why whatever decision you're making. So they can choose in the intent form if they intend to retire, if they intend to stay and they want to stay in their current role, if they'll be seeking a promotion or another job placement, and there might be one, or if they're resigning.
Yeah,
I think those are the 4 things that the person can signal.
Gotcha. And we're asking those questions now in reference to next year?
Yes. And this is these are for managers and above. As it relates to, I haven't looked in a couple of years, but we used to track this, and there always been about 500 employees, at least 500 employees that could always retire throughout the district. 500 or can retire right now. And so that's a large, almost 10% of the 10% of the workforce.
But the thing that worries me and keeps me up at night is, as those people leave, do we have people ready to step into those positions? So as a part of my conversations with chiefs, I'm having, what's the sustainability plan? What's the succession planning? How do we take care of the next round of folks coming in?
Makes sense. Thank you. Let me ask you this question. I know that I love the comment that you made about retention is the new recruitment. I love that. That's gold. Let me ask you this question. What do we have in place, and do we have anything in place for teachers or educators that are coming into our district that has met all of the requirements and they're eligible to be amazing teachers, but they come from places that give them a dialect barrier. Verbally, they have a hard time connecting with our students. What are we doing in those scenarios? Because I want us to get employees, but I also want us to get quality employees. How do we get around that?
That's a great, great, great question. We have an amazing professional learning team, and over the years, as those populations have grown within our district, we have developed professional learning that is specific for educators new to the field or new to the area, new to the region, whatever that looks like. And then we have, they would do classroom management courses, they do relationship building courses, they do ways to engage with families and communities. I went on a field trip with them one time, and one of their professional learning took a group of teachers that were similar to how you just described around Savannah to let people understand this is the community that you're coming into, and they do a lot of coaching around that.
Okay. This will be my last question.
Okay.
Last question would be this. In your opinion, are we very heavy, strong, and stable in the area of professional development? Do we offer those? And my next question to that would be this. Will our average employees say the same?
That's a really great question. And I'm excited to answer that question this year. With the new competency-based executive leadership system, we do spend a lot of time together as leaders. And if you develop your leaders, they can then develop their teams. And one of the goals in the strategic plan under employees is developing professional learning. So many times people have been in positions out of longevity as opposed to this is the right person. And there has been a lot of coaching. Me personally, in my opinion, I have been stretched this year professionally in a great way. And one of the things that it does, because all of our goals and our evaluation align directly to the strategic plan, but we can't do this work alone. So as leaders, we're having to come and cascade down information. So information is not just sitting in cabinet or extended cabinet or with the leaders, is getting down to the employee level. And so this year we have seen an expansion of professional learning opportunities, not just for classroom teachers, but now for our leaders, especially our district leaders. And we are intentionally and strategically working on developing professional learning opportunities for all staff. And that inspired us in HR. We try to lead. And one of the things that we did, we took this same concept that we've been experiencing in extended cabinet, and we have HR Power Hour every month. And what we do is we teach everybody in HR something about our area, because HR is big and it's a big word. And so you may not do certification, so you don't understand it, or I may not do TRS or all of the different retirement systems, but every month we have a HR Power Hour, and these topics are based on what our staff told us they would like to know more about. So we're seeing that across divisions. Everyone is doing professional learning. So though it may not have been formalized in professional learning, what are we doing to develop our staff? And so we didn't get here overnight, and we're not going to unravel this overnight, but what I would say, and I sat in trainings with people, what they say is, I can't put my finger on it just yet, but something is different.
Gotcha.
I'll also add it, we do have a survey that's given by a third party that measures, there is a question or a comment on there where people have to rate their affirmation or satisfaction with professional learning. So we will have coming to you all very soon the results pre and post, how people felt about professional development before, how people feel about professional development now that the year is over. It measures a lot of other things, but that's a specific question. So we'll have quantitative data to support what Dr. Panton just lifted up.
Awesome. Thank you tremendously.
Dr. Brinkman?
I have a paucity of comments.
Okay, GRE word today.
I wanted to talk, when we were over on the other side talking about exit interview surveys, that a lot of that information, I don't want that tail to wag the dog, because some of those people will be super bitter. And again, like Dr. Hoskins-Brown said, they're wanting to light everything on fire. So it's the same with, my students get to evaluate me the week before they get their finals. They typically know their grade already. But when they make comments, I don't get to see, I don't even need to know their name. I just want to know, is this a student that made an A in the class that's making this comment? Or is this a student that's made a D or an F? Because those comments have different weight. So I like the idea of exit interviews. I feel like the qualitative is going to be so much more than the quantitative in a survey, to have those conversations. And I think we would learn more on the people that come back to the grass, because they thought the grass was green, they went somewhere, and they come back, because I'm sure there's an influx. Oh, welcome back. Yeah, so. But they don't get that. If they leave, they don't, and then somebody recruits them again, we keep going back and forth to get the $300?
That would be a good
Ms.
scheme.
Campbell?
That would be a good scheme.
Okay. Dr. Howard Hall?
Yes, thank you for your presentation. My concern and question has been, where are those vacancies, identifying the vacancies, and then identifying the what subject areas. And I did receive some information, and looking at the information, we're struggling with middle grades. And it breaks my heart to know that we have 5 and 7 vacancies in our core subject areas at the middle grades in our high poverty schools, and it's March. So my concern becomes retention and school culture. And everybody knows that's my soapbox, school culture. We can't ignore it. We know that there are some struggles out there. I'm in the community all the time, and I hear things all the time. And we have classroom management concerns. We have school behavior, the culture, and fighting going on in these schools. And I would like to know whether or not the retention has, well, I know, I just, as being an educator, I know that there are certain schools that we have within our districts that don't have any vacancies. Then there's others that have a plethora of vacancies.
Our word for the day.
It's plethora. So retention is the new recruitment, but what are we doing to assist with the school culture? Because it is becoming a major concern for me with some schools within my district. I can't speak for everybody's, but mine.
And I will, before we even answer the question, I'll say we have a lot of work to do to still identify our highest priority schools and to come up with a plan that differentiates those schools from everyone else. We've made some progress this year. At some point, it will be coming to you where we are looking at differentiated staffing and differentiated compensation depending on the complexity of a school. As it relates to culture, we've started some small pilots to help around that. But we are not at a place, and I'm hoping that we're going to get there. I'm not hoping. We will get there, where I am able to bring to you a comprehensive plan for how we will be addressing our highest priority schools. That has not fallen off my plate. I'm very passionate about it, and we need it. It's way past due.
Thank you, because we know that's one of the major concerns for teacher burnout. You can have a class, I've seen many teachers in my time that just quit in the middle of the year because they cannot control the class. They do not have great classroom management skills. And I know we have professional development with that. But sometimes there are certain things that you can't even learn in the book. You have to have an innate ability to understand and to relate with children. Thank you.
Okay, so I have 2 questions. One, how many recruiters do we have for teachers?
I'm glad you brought that up.
It's not loaded.
So, yes.
We know the answer.
We have two recruiter positions. We have one filled.
Didn't have any last year.
And Dr. Pan can add this, but I mean, I can tell you when Dr. Watts mentioned, I said, we have a lot of staff. We have staff in HR, but they're doing a lot. And Dr. Watts said, no, I want somebody specifically devoted to that. That change has been monumental. I don't know if you've seen the billboards that are around town, the advertisements that we do, the concerted effort to be able to actually go to all the fairs. Person is dedicated to do that. We just have a advertisement now in the Oglethorpe Mall and inside. We're working on getting something at the airport. One of those, we're working on that one too. So that person has been able to do things that we didn't realize until we had them. And it also takes a good person. So that employee is very, very good at what they do. And I'll let Dr. Pan add any more.
I was going to say we have 5,600 recruiters because we all are out here recruiting and working together. But yes, having a person who can dedicate their day to that, and she and I have been very focused on where is the footprint of Savannah-Chatham County Public School System not at, and that has been our focus this year. Like, where do we not see Savannah-Chatham County Public School System? So it is helpful, and we will certainly get the other one filled.
But we have two positions allocated, but just one field.
All right.
Okay. All right. My other question is this. So, and this comes back to our budget. Last year, we spent a considerable amount of money on our switch to the science of reading. And as far as teacher training, we had to do that because the schools that we were getting our teachers from were not teaching teachers the science of reading. In the state of Georgia, I think there's maybe one school that teaches their teachers the science of reading. To avoid us having to spend that money again, are we recruiting from that school?
We're recruiting everywhere.
I mean,
We recruit everywhere. I don't
yes,
think
we're
we have
recruiting
any
everywhere, but
focus.
yes,
But
we are
focus.
aware of that.
It's a very small.
Yeah, it's a small number compared to the number of openings that we have. We were definitely recruiting at that school and others. Yes.
Okay, all right. Dr. Brinkman, yes.
I just want to say thank you, Dr. Watts, for adding those positions. Because yes, we all should be an outward face, but recruiting, and I always have to argue, I am stuck in that in my job. They're always like, we have tons of applicants. I was like, yeah, but we can recruit better applicants,
Right.
not just more applicants. So even if the amount of people that come in doesn't change significantly, it probably will. The quality
Is the important.
should change too, because if y'all both smiled when y'all were thinking about her.
Yep,
So I know she's got the touch, because
Yes.
they have to have a salesperson's personality, and then they're also just that connection point. So when something isn't going right, they're probably going to go reach back out to that recruiter and say, this isn't, how do I? So they're a one-stop shop at that beginning portion. So thank you for seeing that, and thank you for manifesting it. And it will, I think, make a huge difference.
And on the back end with retention, it's the same thing. Like, if you look at the KPI indicator, it says retention of effective employees.
Yes.
Not just all employees. So that's why we have to do some evaluation recalibration so that we know truly what is effective and what is not.
Ms. Grabowski?
Sorry, I didn't ask this earlier because I know y'all had to get to the said horseshoe. But going back to Dr. Hoskins-Brown's comment about an earlier conversation where an employee can provide feedback about where they are struggling early, where we can still have the time to do something about it, I think is great. And I think you said we're doing that right now through a survey. So my question is, what happens with those survey results, and how are we communicating that back to the people that are taking the surveys? Because people get so tired taking surveys if they don't see that their input is valued and utilized. And sometimes there's nothing but I think that response back when we have a survey is so important if we are going to continue to use that as a tool to use feedback.
So to respond to that, the very first survey that we gave was at the end of my first year, so spring of 2024. We got the results of that survey back in aggregate form. Over the summer, I said I need the results by school and by department. So Hanover extrapolated the data, reorganized it for us. In principal meetings, each principal and each department leader received their school data, and we discussed plans and next steps to address areas of weakness, and then also to affirm and validate things that were going well. We just did a mid-year survey. We're doing the same process before the end of the year. So my expectation is that every school and every department leader are going back, as Dr. Panton just mentioned, sharing the data and discussing how leaders plan to respond to it. Now, the fidelity in which that is happening, I cannot speak to that, but that is the expectation.
Well, thank you so much. That's a great response, so thank you for that. But that last piece, the fidelity to which it's happening, like if it doesn't make it to the teachers that their input is valued, we're not going to get it.
Right,
So,
right.
But I know you're working with your team to make sure that does reach down to all levels, so thank you.
Ms. Hall?
Dr. Panton, every job that's listed on our career website right now, what is the timeline? If I applied for any one of those today, what is the timeline between my applying today and when I'm actually, if qualified and all, end up in that position at that desk? Because I do hear that we are very slow about getting people hired.
Good. So it depends on, is it a position that's a pool that is opening continuously, or is it a position that has a hard closing date? We do not allow principals to interview anybody until, if it's a position that's been posted and the closing date is next week, HR will make sure that all the applications are reviewed within 48 hours of the closing date, and they are released to the principal. We don't let them interview anyone before a position that has a closing date on it ends, because we don't want someone to miss the opportunity to be selected for an interview because they applied the night before it closed.
And
So-
who decides whether that time period is 2 weeks to the closing date or it's a month from now?
The hiring manager.
The hiring manager.
And who is that? That's
The
you?
the
No.
person who's over that site or that department, that school or that department. So the principal can just say, I want this position to be open 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or ongoing.
Okay. So that's for positions at a site.
Or department, yes.
Okay.
I will also add that sometimes paperwork is lagging, so we may need a document, and we're dependent upon the candidate to go to their college and get the document, and we're waiting, we're in a holding
Yeah, that's not
pattern.
our fault if they
Right,
don't
we're
have the.
holding,
But
yes.
if they have all of their ducks in a row,
It should go pretty quickly if all things are in order. Another holdup could be we have to check references on everyone. So if we're waiting to hear back from, I reached out to you, you're one of the references, and you don't call me back, then I got to go find another reference, or I have to wait on you to call me back. But I'm saying all those things, I don't know
Yeah.
how long. It
I
would
mean,
be a good
right.
exercise for us to measure.
Exactly.
yeah, it would be
Application
nice if that
time
could be
to-
a goal.
Yes.
Yeah.
We are going to try to,
Reduce the amount of time,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yep.
Dr. Brinkman?
I would want that to be dependent on the position. There are some things that I would say, you got somebody that's acceptable, hire them right away. But for most teaching positions and above, I don't want a 2 or 3 week. I would almost, if we're going to make policy, want at least a month for that job to be posted so people apply, so you actually have an applicant pool and not an applicant puddle or an applicant water drop, because and yeah, that does. So if you're the person that applies day one, you do wait, but that's part of the process.
But with these many vacancies, David, that should be open, that, like you said, that should be ongoing, recurring over and over and over. It shouldn't be just this one time we have, you see what I'm saying? If we have these many vacancies,
Right, so for our positions that we started in January throughout our open positions, so mostly teaching positions, one of the reasons why we keep it open is just because the teacher may find out, principal may find out they have a resignation today. Well, they can go jump in the pool. So they can go right now and go in, not do a posting. So it's not that there's necessarily a time, there's also this time period that it might be, you might be math and there might not be an opening, or there might be an opening right now. And so your application is in there and it may take a while until that principal actually gets an opening to be able to contact you, because we had it open since January, as an example.
One of the concepts that I'm working to reframe principal mindsets, because I had a principal ask recently, well, I don't have any vacancies, so do I have to go to the job fair? We're having a job fair on Saturday. Do I have to go? And I said, you absolutely have to go, because you're not hiring just for your school. You are an ambassador for the district now. And while you may not have a vacancy, the school down the road may have a vacancy. We're also discussing the concept around overhiring during this time of the year. Again, people don't always tell us they're going to retire. So a principal doesn't know that somebody's going to drop their retirement on August the 5th, a week after school starts. And so to have a pool of already hired teachers, we're never going to, I hate to say this, but we will likely never fill every vacancy. I've never been afraid of overhiring. Chief financial officers feel differently about that. But I am not, I don't feel it's a risk, because I've not, as long as I've been in education, I don't think I've ever seen every teaching position be filled. So there's always going to be a vacancy. I do think there's a lot to do with timing. I've pushed principals to hire early. We cannot wait to think a better candidate is coming. Most really good teachers are making decisions about moving in December, really. And they are coming out the gate very early. When you wait till August, and because you think, oh, the better person's coming. The better person is not coming. So let's be thoughtful and try to, it's a war for talent right now in education. There is not a single job related to public education, from the superintendent all the way down to custodian across this country, where there is not a workforce shortage. So it's the war for talent, and you can't wait for Superman. He's not coming. Or woman.
Or woman, since this is the month of
So
the
I'm
woman.
about, let's hire for the vacancies now. If you know there's a vacancy or you think there's a potential vacancy, let's overhire.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that board members will be sending more questions.
Yes, all good dialogue, though.
Thank you very much. Finally, today, we will have a presentation from Malden and Jenkins, our external auditors. And from Malden and Jenkins, we have Ms. Hope Pendergrass.
Yes, and we thank Ms. Hope for driving down and joining us today, and hopefully she won't talk about us too bad, but I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Hope.
Thank you, Mr. Larry. Good afternoon, board members, President Moss, and Dr. Watts. Dr. Hoskins-Brown has kind of stole a little bit of my thunder, so I believe you have before you some documents. You should have the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, or the ACFR. You should also have the Single Audit Report. You should have the Auditor's Discussion and Analysis. And I think the last document is the management letter. I will not be going over the management letter because that information is included in our Auditor's Discussion and Analysis as well. So I'm going to start with the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, or your ACFR. It did used to have another name, but it looks like this. You all design your own cover. As Dr. Hoskins Brown alluded to earlier, you all are one of the few school districts in the state of Georgia that goes above and beyond the basic requirements to prepare an annual comprehensive financial report. So there's about 15 school districts in the state of Georgia that do this. It includes some introductory information that is prepared by management, as well as some statistical information in the back that gives you 10 years worth of history on a lot of different things: financial data, demographic data, operating data, debt capacity data, as well as some operating statistics. You all do submit this for an award both to the Government Finance Officers Association as well as the Association of School Business Officials. And I think y'all have been doing that for some time. So I just want to congratulate management and the board for, taking it up a notch. You don't have to go above and beyond, and you all have always been committed to financial stewardship, and this is just another way that you are doing that. The first thing I want to talk about is our independent auditors report. The actual first page is not numbered, but it would be 1. So an audit is designed to opine on whether or not your financial statements are materially correct. We conducted our audit and determined that your financial statements as presented are materially correct. And so that's called a clean or an unmodified opinion, and that's the best that you can get. So again, congratulations to management and the board for achieving that goal. The next section is the management's discussion and analysis. This is where management takes the opportunity to analyze the data, both the current year against the prior year, and kind of talk about things that are changing. It also includes information on your budget, as well as economic forecasting. I encourage you, if you don't read anything else, to read that, because it kind of gives you a synopsis of this document and your financial position. The next page that I'll talk about is page 23. This is your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. So this shows where the money came from and where the money went. Your major, what we call your major funds, your bigger funds, are presented in a singular column, and then your smaller funds are aggregated together in your non-major funds. The detail of those non-major funds are included in the back of the document. You all spent for your general fund about $522.6 million last year. So if you expended all your dollars evenly over each week, which you do not, you would be spending a little over $10 million a week. So when you look at your fund balance, you had about 23 weeks of reserves there. Flipping back to page 21, your total fund balance in the general fund, and some of that is already earmarked for things, is 235.5. A lot of times people ask me, well, is fund balance cash? Fund balance is not normally cash, but you all have a very liquid fund balance, as you'll see at the very top line that your general fund cash amount was about $213 million. So of your reserves, a good portion of that was in cash. Beginning on page 30, you have lots of notes to the financial statements. This just gives you additional information about some of the numbers that are presented in your financial statements. But I'm going to flip over to your required supplementary information, page 80. This is your general fund budget to actual statement. So this kind of shows how you all performed against how you anticipated you would perform. So you brought in about $28.3 million more than anticipated, and you also spent about $29 million less than anticipated. So you originally budgeted to use $27 million of your reserves, but you actually added to your reserves. And so just like you all were discussing at length ahead of me, many of my districts are facing teacher shortages. And so the budget is usually developed for a full staff. And so some of the difference in your budget and actual may be contributed to vacancies as well as other things. It looks like your property tax revenue came in higher than anticipated, but then your instructional costs also came in less than anticipated. So The next couple pages is just interesting to me, and I'm an accountant, so I'm a little nerdy. You know, when you're developing your budget, you all have to consider that there are certain costs that you all have no control over, right? Like your state health benefit cost. The state tells you this is how much your benefit costs are going to be per classified and for certified. They also tell you this is what your TRS contribution rate is going to be. They also set certain times. There's been recently where the governor would do a $3,000 pay raise for all teachers. Well, what that doesn't consider is that state-funded positions, not your local funded positions. So if you have local funded positions, you have to make the decision, are we going to give all our teachers the same raise, or are we just going to give the state-funded positions? So there are a lot of costs when you all are developing your budget that you all don't have any control over. So what this page shows you, let me actually go over to page 84. This is an example of your TRS contributions. So on page 85, you'll notice back in 2015, the district was contributing $25.7 million for TRS. That was the employer part. Contribution rate was 13%. Going forward to 2024, you all contributed almost $58 million. So it more than doubled in 10 years, not only because your rate went up, but of course also because your staffing went up as well. You have more teachers than you did 10 years ago. But it's just interesting to me to see the additional costs that you all have to consider over time as part of your budget. Again, as I mentioned before, there's lots of statistical information that begins on page 114. This shows you, again, 10 years worth of history for certain financial, operating, demographic, debt information. So it's kind of neat. Like I said, I'm a nerd, so that's kind of neat to look at. In addition to our financial statement opinion that we issue that was clean in your single audit report, we also take a look at your federal expenditures. You all expended about $102 million, and this is on page 8 of the single audit report. In your federal dollars last year, that includes like Title I, special ed, school nutrition, and ESSER. We do a risk-based analysis where we don't look at every single program every year. This past year, we looked at your school nutrition program and your special ed program. Those two programs represented about $28.2 million of expenditures, which was about 27.7%. We had no findings to report in regard to those compliance testing that we did in regard to your federal programs. The last document is our auditor's discussion and analysis. This includes some information about Malden Jenkins. It also includes some information that we are required to communicate to you all by the standards. We do have a couple of recommendations in here. These have been discussed with management, and I don't think there's anything that gives me, I guess, heartburn or pause. And I think management is committed to implementing those recommendations going forward. At this time, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Ms. Campbell?
Hey, thank you for driving here to see us.
It's a pretty drive today.
Yeah, it was nicer once you got here, yeah. So I have a question about the AD&A.
Okay.
Let me find the one for 24. So I've found a recurrent sort of thing here.
Okay.
Ever since 2019 until 2024, the formal year-end closing schedules have been mentioned.
Okay.
So it's almost a copy and paste year after year. What do we do to fix that? And what does that mean for us that we keep having this issue with formal year-end closing schedules? Why might we be having an issue that maybe I don't understand?
So, Malden Jenkins started doing the audit, I think, in 2018. The previous firm had been in place for, I think, some time. They had continuously won the bid process. And they kind of knew where to go and where to ask questions and what was done. And so the first year when this comment kind of came up, it was because, hey, we're having to talk to a lot of different people to figure out exactly what we need. And there almost need to be a gatekeeper. Mm-hmm. This process has evolved with great improvement over the years. This past year, though, you did have some transition in your staffing. in that position. And so there was a little bit of, we got to get up to speed time with that, which is common when you have changeover in staff. They got to learn the district, they got to learn the software, they got to learn the auditors. So this comment was just made to say, okay, hey, there could be some improvement in the organization of how we do the audit. It wasn't that there was any problems with the audit. We got the information we need. We issued the audit on time. We didn't have any material adjustments or findings. So this is just a recommendation of how the process can be better going forward.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Okay. Like I said, Ms. Hoskins Brown stole all my thunder. So. Dr. Hoskins Brown, I'm sorry.
Let me just say how pleased I am with her presentation. You do an excellent job.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Okay. I will now accept a motion to go into executive session. So moved. Second. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you.